What's up everyone, Patrick here, welcome back. Moving on to another linear systems word problem under the elimination section. So a photo studio rental has a fixed daily cost plus a cost per hour. The first time you rent it for 2 days and a total of 12 hours, and the cost was $520 for that time. And then another time you rent it for 5 days and 25 hours for a total cost of $1,150. And then we have to figure out what is the daily and the hourly cost for the studio. Okay, so when you rent it out, you're paying a daily cost and then an hourly cost. So that's what I'm going to let the variables be. I'm going to let x equal the daily cost, and then I'm going to let y equal the hourly cost. And then once we have those two variables, we can create some equations. So the first time you rent it for 2 days and a total of 12 hours. So for the 2 days, how much is the cost going to come from the days? Well, it's going to be the 2 days you rent it for times the daily cost, the cost per day, which would be x. That's what we're solving for. Plus, there's going to be an hourly cost. You rent it for 12 hours among those 2 days, split up in whatever way it is, but it doesn't matter in this question. It's not 12 hours per day, it's just 12 hours in total over the 2 days. So 12 hours times the hourly cost. And in total, that total cost is going to be $520. Right, now let's make another equation with the next sentence. So another time you rent it for 5 days times the daily cost plus 25 hours, right, times the hourly cost. And the total cost of that is going to be $1,150, like that. So those are the two equations that we are going to work with. Now, in this case, we're going to be doing elimination. I feel like it's going to be easier to get rid of the x's. And so one way to do it is you can multiply everything by 2, multiply everything here by 5, so then you'll have 10x, and then you could cancel those out. But notice that we can simplify these as well. Notice that in the first equation, we could divide everything by 2, right? So what would we end up with then? We would end up with x plus 6y is equal to 260, like that. So this is equation 1, this is also equation 1. Both of those equations are the same thing. It's just this is simplified from that. Everything was divisible by 2, so we might as well just work with more simple numbers. And then notice in equation 2, we can actually divide everything by 5. Okay, so what we would end up with then is x plus 5y is equal to 1,150 divided by 5 would give us what? 230? Like that. And now notice, so this ends up being equation 2. Now notice we actually don't have to do anything else. We don't have to multiply this by anything, multiply this by anything, because the x's are the same. So we could just subtract this from that, and then the x's would cancel out. All right, so simplifying like this, finding these opportunities to simplify can save you a lot of work. Just be really careful with all your algebra when getting these new values here. So subtracting this from that, right, 1x minus 1x, that would be 0. 6y minus 5y would give us 1y. And then 260 minus 230 would just give us 30. So 1y is equal to 30, which means just y is equal to 30. So that's the hourly cost. So the hourly cost is $30 per hour. And then if we want to solve for the corresponding daily cost or the corresponding x value, we could plug them into the originals. I'd rather just plug them into one of these, right? Because the x is already isolated. So let's plug it into the first one. X plus 6 times 30 is equal to 260, so we'll have x plus 180 is equal to 260. Bring the 180 over, x would end up equaling 80. And so that ends up being the daily cost. Right, so the daily cost is $80 per day. The hourly cost is $30 per hour. That ends up being the final solution. If you want to do a final check, a quick check, you could plug those into the original. So if we do that, we'll have 2, not the ones we simplified to, so I'm going to get rid of these divisions here that we did. Right, we're plugging them into the original. So we'll have 2 times the x value of 80, 2 days, plus 12 hours times the hourly cost. That should be 520. And then we end up with 160 plus this ends up being 360. And notice that 160 plus 360 does indeed give us 520. Left side is equal to the right side. So that's all good. And then for the next one, we'll have 5 times 80 plus 25 times 30. And then that should be 1,150. This would end up equaling 400. This would end up equaling 750. And notice that 750 plus 400 does indeed give us 1,150. All right, so we can be pretty confident with those checks that those 2 values are the correct solution.